colleagues, I am the head of a Japanese business club in Moscow, and the Japanese business club in Moscow is a non-commercial organization with a board in Moscow, and I would like to tell you about the following. I would like to repeat some statements I made in the first Russian-Japanese forum in June earlier this year. You see this slide with investment of by Japanese companies to countries. As you see, Japanese companies only invested $3 billion into Russia. So even investment in Vietnam is 10 billion, 3 times more. And the fact that Japanese businessmen invest in Russia 3 times less than in Vietnam, this is the true situation. And unlike trade, investment is sort of the marriage. So these figures gives us the opportunity to tell that the Japanese companies don't see their goals. But there is some investment carried out. In recent 22 years, Japan is a major creditor. Japan, compared to many other countries, has money it can invest. And in recent years, revenues from foreign investment has been quite substantial. And but after the emergency in Fukushima, the trade balance was negative. So, as for the top investors, they were the top 3 countries were USA, Japan, and China. And what I would like to tell you, Japan has enough experience as an investor country, and China is still developing as investment countries, and it had a lot of cases where investment actually failed. And as the country that sadly Russia ranks last as countries getting revenues from investment. What are the reasons? We can tell the same about China. Quite often the main reason is that investment is based on state policy, and quite often and Russian foreign investment couldn't be said as successful. I would like you to know that investing in Japan by Japanese companies, those companies profited from lower prices for gas. Before, we mainly said that Japan buys oil and gas from Russia, but in future, let's think on where Japanese company can invest their money in Russia. And I believe that before 2020, Japanese economy would see fast and steady growth. I realize that I am limited in terms of time. And to conclude, I would like to show you some examples. Let's review the history of 50 years of the Japanese-Soviet or Japanese-Russian cooperation. So this picture saying KS project is the first stage of mastering resources of the Far East. You see that materials were delivered to Russia, and Japanese vehicles started to work in the dead of Siberia, which made Komatsu a leading manufacturer. And it was a really large-scale project. And in the top right corner you see building of Vostochny port, which started in 1970s, and it started to function for bulk transshipment in coal. So machinery was exported from Japan and delivered by Japanese side. And you see Sakhalin 2 project. Production started since 2000. And supplies after collapse of at Fukushima power plant, energy supplies from Russia really saved our country. Japanese country was actively cooperating with Soviet government, and competent people told me, as for Mitsui Trading Company I am representing, it's quite active investing in Russia. For instance, accounting standards and internal Russian laws were largely adopted, and they shifted to international accounting standards, but investment is limited by $3 billion. It's a shame, but that means that we can develop this sum, and there is a business dialogue which turned into a more transparent information exchange, and I'm sure that we can continue with other large-scale projects in our cooperation. Thank you so much.